The story of Helaman and his 2,000 young warriors, the one from the Book of Alma, chapter 56.
Yeah.
It really captures the imagination, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It speaks to something deep within us. That desire for courage, for faith, especially when you're facing those impossible odds.
It does. It certainly does. And it's not just a thrilling war story. It's a testament to the power of belief.
Right.
You know how it's passed down from generation to generation, and how that belief can manifest itself in these just incredible acts of bravery.
Yeah, and it just drops us right into the middle of this desperate conflict. The Nephites are at war with the Lamanites, and things are not looking good.
No, they're not. But it's at this point, when hope seems to be dwindling, that we're introduced to this truly unique group, 2,000 young men, all sons of the men Ammon had brought down from the land of Nephi.
And they're not just any soldiers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they carry this particular heritage, this legacy that makes their decision to fight all the more remarkable.
It's a fascinating heritage. They're descendants of Laman Lehi's eldest son, and their lineage is intertwined with this unique covenant that really sets them apart.
And speaking of the scriptures, Alma 56, 3-6.
Behold, 2,000 of the sons of those men whom Ammon brought down out of the land of Nephi. Now ye have known that these were descendants of Laman, who was the eldest son of our father Lehi. Now I need not rehearse unto you concerning their traditions or their unbelief, for thou knowest concerning all these things. Therefore it sufficeth me that I tell you that 2,000 of these young men have taken their weapons of war, and would that I should be their leader,
right.
And we have come forth to defend our country. And now ye also know concerning the covenant which their fathers made, that they would not take up their weapons of war against their brethren to shed blood.
So their fathers, having come from this background of conflict and perhaps even animosity towards the Nephites, had made this profound vow to lay down their sword.
Exactly. A generational promise, a commitment to peace that had been passed down.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting. These young men raised with this pacifist legacy find themselves in a situation where their people are suffering. Their very way of life is under threat.
And their natural instinct is to fight to protect. And Alma 56.7, it says, but in the 26th year, when they saw our afflictions and our tribulations for them, they were about to break the covenant which they had made and take up their weapons of war in our defense. They see the desperation and they're ready to step up, even if it means going against their father's oath.
Absolutely. It's this powerful moment of internal conflict.
Yeah.
On the one hand, they have this deeply ingrained commitment to peace.
Right.
And on the other, they have this burning desire to defend their people.
Yeah.
And in their youthful zeal, they're ready to break that covenant.
But then their leader, Helaman, steps in.
Yeah.
He's not just a military commander. He's a spiritual guide, a mentor to these young men. And instead of just letting them break their oath, he makes a different choice.
Yeah.
He puts his faith in God's protection.
It's a testament to his leadership. Imagine the pressure he must have been under. His people are desperate for any help they can get.
Right.
And here are these 2,000 eager warriors ready to fight. But he holds firm, believing that God will provide a way.
And Alma 56.8 really captures this well. But I would not suffer them that they should break this covenant which they had made, supposing that God would strengthen us, insomuch that we should not suffer more because of the fulfilling the oath which they had taken. It's choosing faith over expediency, and that decision has profound consequences.
It does. It does.
Because he leads these young men not to a battlefield, but to the city of Judea.
To the city of Judea, where another Nephite leader, Antipas, is struggling to hold off the Lamanite forces.
And Antipas is in a dire situation.
He is.
His army is depleted. They've suffered heavy losses.
The Lamanites are advancing, and several key cities have already fallen under their control.
Which must have been devastating to the Nephite morale.
Absolutely. Alma 56.11-17 details the extent of their losses. And the Lamanites had also retained many prisoners, all of whom are chief captains, for none other have they spared alive. And we suppose that they are now at this time in the land of Nephi. It is so if they are not slain. And now these are the cities of which the Lamanites have obtained possession by the shedding of the blood of so many of our valiant men. The land of Manti, or the city of Manti, and the city of Zizrim, and the city of Cumani, and the city of Antipara. And these are the cities which they possessed when I arrived at the city of Judea. And I found Antipas and his men toiling with their might to fortify the city. Yea, and they were depressed in body as well as in spirit, for they had fought valiantly by day, and toiled by night to maintain their cities, and thus they had suffered great afflictions of every kind. Now they were determined to conquer in this place or die. Therefore you may well suppose that this little force which I brought with me, yea, those sons of mine, gave them great hopes and much joy.
So the arrival of Helaman and his 2,000 young warriors, even though untested in battle, must have been a glimmer of hope in a very dark time.
It was. They brought much-needed reinforcements, lifted the spirits of Antipas and his weary men. But the Lamanites, they were a force to be reckoned with.
Right.
They were known for their ferocity, their
Yeah.
ruthlessness in battle.
So even with these young men arriving, they were still facing a pretty daunting challenge.
They were.
So what was the Lamanite strategy at this point? Did they just attack Judea directly?
Interestingly, no, they hesitated.
Okay.
Alma 56. 18 through 19 tells us, and it came to pass that when the Lamanites saw that Antipas had received a greater strength to his army, they were compelled by the orders of Ammoron to not come against the city of Judea or against us to battle, and thus were we favored of the Lord, for had they come upon us in this our weakness, they might have perhaps destroyed our little army, but thus were we preserved.
So they're holding back, assessing the situation, what's going on in their minds. Were they just intimidated by these new reinforcements?
Perhaps. But, their hesitation also suggests this new level of strategic thinking. They're no longer just this brute force. They're analyzing, planning, trying to understand the situation before making their next move.
And this hesitation on their part, it gave the Nephites a critical advantage because now they had time to regroup,
Right.
fortify their defenses, prepare for that inevitable Lamanite attack.
Exactly. And the Nephites weren't just sitting back passively.
Right.
They had a plan, a rather daring one,
Okay.
to lure the Lamanites into a trap.
So even though they were outnumbered, they were looking to exploit the terrain, use their knowledge of the land to their advantage.
That's right, Alma 56. 20 and 21 states, they were commanded by Ammoron to maintain those cities which they had taken, and thus ended the 26th year. And in the commencement of the 27th year, we had prepared our city and ourselves for defense. Now we were desirous that the Lamanites should come upon us, for we were not desirous to make an attack upon them in their strongholds.
But the Lamanites may be learning from past mistakes.
Right?
Weren't easily drawn out.
No.
They were cautious, hesitant to fall into a Nephite trap.
They were. The Nephites even sent out spies watching the Lamanite movement, hoping to catch them off guard. They wanted to strike when the Lamanites least expected it. Verses 22 to 26 paint this really vivid picture. And it came to pass that we kept spies out round about to watch the movements of the Lamanites, that they might not pass us by night nor by day to make an attack upon our other cities which were on the northward. For we knew in those cities they were not sufficiently strong to meet them. Therefore, we were desirous, if they should pass by us, to fall upon them in their rear, and thus bring them up in the rear at the same time they were met in the front. We supposed that we could overpower them, but behold, we were disappointed in this our desire. They durst not pass by us with their whole army, neither durst they with a part, lest they should not be sufficiently strong and they should fall. Neither durst they march down against the city of Zarahemla, neither durst they cross the head of Sidon over to the city of Nephihah. And thus, with their forces, they were determined to maintain those cities which they had taken.
So it's a stalemate. The Nephites are waiting for an opportunity to strike. The Lamanites are refusing to take the bait. It must have been a tense time.
It was, but then something unexpected happens. The families of those 2,000 young warriors, knowing the dire situation, send provisions to support their sons and the Nephite army. And to further bolster their forces, reinforcements arrive from Zarahemla.
So at this point, the Nephites are actually getting stronger.
They are.
Which must have been a surprise to the Lamanites.
It was Alma 56. 27 to 29 tells us, and now it came to pass in the 2nd month of this year, there was brought unto us many provisions from the fathers of those my 2,000 sons, and also there were sent 2,000 men unto us from the land of Zarahemla, and thus we were prepared with 10,000 men, and provisions for them, and also for their wives and their children. And the Lamanites, thus seeing our forces increase daily, and provisions arrive for our support, they began to be fearful, and began to sally forth, if it were possible, to put an end to our receiving provisions and strength.
So the Lamanites fear it actually prompts them to action.
It does.
To break out of this stalemate.
Yes. And this is where Antipas and Helaman, seeing an opportunity, put a daring plan into action. They decide to use those 2,000 young warriors, those sons of the men who had vowed never to fight as bait.
Bait. That sounds incredibly risky. These young men with no battle experience sent out to face the full might of the Lamanite army.
It was a calculated risk. and one that required immense faith both from Helaman and the young warriors themselves. They were to march towards the city of Antipara, pretending to carry provisions. The goal was to lure out the strongest Lamanite army stationed in that very city.
And were they even aware of the danger they were walking into, these young men? I mean, were they prepared to face such a formidable enemy?
We can only imagine the weight of their responsibility. But their courage, rooted in their faith and their love for their people, it just shone through Alma 56. 30:32 tells us, "Now when we saw that the Lamanites began to grow uneasy on this wise, we were desirous to bring a stratagem into effect upon them. Therefore, Antipas ordered that I should march forth with my little sons to a neighboring city, as if we were carrying provisions to a neighboring city. And we were to march near the city of Antipara, as if we were going to the city beyond, in the borders by the seashore. And it came to pass that we did march forth, as if with our provisions, to go to that city."
So they're pretending to be this vulnerable supply train, hoping to tempt the Lamanites into attacking.
Yeah.
What happened when they approached Antipara?
The Lamanites, seeing this seemingly easy target, they took the bait. As planned, the largest and most powerful Lamanite army stationed in Antipara marched out to confront Helaman and his young warriors.
It's almost like a David and Goliath scenario, isn't it? These young men, untested and inexperienced, facing down the giants of the Lamanite army.
It is. And their bravery in the face of such overwhelming odds is awe-inspiring, Alma 56. 33:35 describes this encounter. "And it came to pass that Antipas did march forth with a part of his army, leaving the remainder to maintain the city. But he did not march forth until I had gone forth with my little army and came near the city Antipara. And now in the city Antipara were stationed the strongest army of the Lamanites, yea, the most numerous. And it came to pass that when they had been informed by their spies, they came forth with their army and marched against us."
So while Helaman and his young warriors are acting as decoys, Antipas and his men are following close behind, hoping to catch the Lamanites in a pincer movement.
Exactly. But the plan hinges on the young warriors being able to draw the Lamanites away from their stronghold to lead them on a chase. And that's precisely what they did.
So they fled northward, leading the Lamanite army further and further away from their base.
Yes, and they did so with remarkable speed and agility. Remember, these young men, though raised in peace, were likely physically fit and well-trained. They were leading the Lamanites on a grueling chase.
And the Lamanites, consumed by the thought of an easy victory, didn't even realize they were being led into a trap.
They were so focused on catching these seemingly vulnerable young men that they didn't even notice Antipas and his army on their trail. Alma 56. 36:37 says, "And it came to pass that we did flee before them northward, and thus we did lead away the most powerful army of the Lamanites. Yea, even to a considerable distance, insomuch that when they saw the army of Antipas pursuing them with their might, they did not turn to the right nor to the left, but pursued their march in a straight course after us. And, as we suppose, it was their intent to slay us before Antipas should overtake them, and this, that they might not be surrounded by our people."
So the chase continues into the night. What happens then?
Night falls, providing a brief respite. The Lamanites, exhausted from the pursuit, haven't caught up with Helaman and his men, and Antipas following behind hasn't caught up with the Lamanites. Everyone camps out, but the tension doesn't diminish. As soon as dawn breaks, the Lamanites resume their relentless pursuit of Helaman and his young warriors.
And did Helaman at any point attempt to fight back? Or were they strictly following this plan of leading the Lamanites away?
He knew his men weren't prepared for a direct confrontation with such a formidable enemy. They were outmatched, outnumbered, and inexperienced. He didn't want to risk their lives prematurely. He was also wary of the possibility of a Lamanite ambush.
So they continued to flee northward with the Lamanite army in hot pursuit. It's a heart-stopping chase, isn't it? These young men with their very lives hanging in the balance.
It is. And amidst the chaos and the fear, Helaman gathers his young warriors and asks them a profound question. He says, "What say ye, my sons? Will ye go against them to battle?" He needs to know their resolve, their willingness to fight.
And this question coming from their leader, their mentor, it must have held immense weight.
Absolutely. Remember, these young men had never seen battle before. They had been raised in peace, and now they're being asked to face the most fearsome army of their time. Alma 56. 43-44 describes this pivotal moment. "And now, whether they were overtaken by Antipas, we knew not, but I said unto my men, Behold, we know not, but they have halted for the purpose that we should come against them, that they might catch us in their snare. Therefore, what say ye, my sons, will ye go against them to battle?"
And what was their response?
Their response is one of the most powerful and inspiring passages in the Book of Mormon. It reveals not only their courage, but the profound influence of their mother's faith.
So they've been running for their lives facing this uncertain future, and Helaman asks if they're ready to fight.
And they don't hesitate. They don't even question. They answer with a resounding yes.
Wow.
Fueled by a faith that seems almost unimaginable to us today.
Their upbringing, their heritage, it all pointed toward pacifism.
Yeah.
Yet here they are, ready to face this terrifying enemy.
It's a testament to the strength of their belief and the power of the teachings they received, not just from Helaman, but from their mothers. Alma 56, 45-48 says, "And now I say unto you, my beloved brother Moroni, that never had I seen so great courage, nay, not amongst all the Nephites. For as I had ever called them my sons, for they were all of them very young, even so they said unto me, Father, behold, our God is with us, and he will not suffer that we should fall. Then let us go forth. We would not slay our brethren if they would let us alone. Therefore let us go, lest they should overpower the army of Antipas." Now they never had fought, yet they did not fear death, and they did think more upon the liberty of their fathers than they did upon their lives. Yea, they had been taught by their mothers that if they did not doubt, God would deliver them. And they rehearsed unto me the words of their mother, saying, "We do not doubt our mothers knew it."
They were willing to lay down their lives, not out of some bloodlust or a desire for revenge,
Right.
but for something far greater. They were fighting for their families, their faith, their freedom.
And they believed with this unwavering certainty that God would protect them. This wasn't blind faith. It was a faith forged in the fires of their upbringing, a faith instilled in them by their mothers.
So Helaman, inspired by their courage, leads these 2,000 young warriors back towards the Lamanites. And that's when they discovered that Antipas and his army had finally caught up.
Right. The Lamanites, exhausted from their pursuit, are taken by surprise. The trap had been sprung.
Okay.
But there was a problem. Antipas's army was on the verge of collapse.
So even with the element of surprise, victory was far from certain.
The Book of Alma tells us that Antipas himself had fallen in battle, along with many of his leaders. His men, weary from the long chase, were about to be overrun. Things looked grim.
It's like a scene from a movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
The tide is about to turn against them. All hope seems lost.
And then those 2,000 young warriors, fueled by their faith and their determination, charged into the fray.
What happened when they met the Lamanites?
Their arrival was like a thunderbolt. They fought with a ferocity that shocked the Lamanites, a strength that seemed to defy all logic. They didn't just fight, they raged against the enemy, pushing them back, breaking their lines.
It's almost as if they were imbued with a power beyond their own.
That's how it's described. Alma 56. 52-53 says, "And it came to pass that the Lamanites took courage and began to pursue them. And thus were the Lamanites pursuing them with great vigor, when Helaman came upon their rear with his 2,000, and began to slay them exceedingly, insomuch that the whole army of the Lamanites halted and turned upon Helaman. Now when the people of Antipas saw that the Lamanites had turned them about, they gathered together their men and came again upon the rear of the Lamanites."
So their arrival not only saved Antipas's men, but turned the tide of the entire battle.
Right.
It's a remarkable turning point.
It is. The Lamanites, overwhelmed by the ferocity of these young warriors and caught between two Nephite forces, find themselves trapped.
They had walked right into the trap that had been set for them.
They had no choice but to surrender. Their defeat was complete.
And those young warriors, those sons of pacifists, who had never seen battle before, they had achieved this stunning victory. What happened to them? Did they suffer any losses?
That's perhaps the most miraculous part of this entire story. When Helaman gathers his men after the battle, he discovers that not a single one of them had been killed.
That's incredible. It defies all military logic. How could they have survived such a fierce battle without a single casualty?
It's described as a divine intervention, a testament to their unwavering faith. Alma 56. 54-56 tells us, "And now it came to pass that we, the people of Nephi, the people of Antipas, and I with my 2,000 did surround the Lamanites, and did slay them. Yea, insomuch that they were compelled to deliver up their weapons of war, and also themselves as prisoners of war. And now it came to pass that when they had surrendered themselves up unto us, behold, I numbered those young men who had fought with me, fearing lest there were many of them slain. But behold, to my great joy, there had not one soul of them fallen to the earth. Yea, and they had fought as if with the strength of God. Yea, never were men known to have fought with such miraculous strength. And with such mighty power did they fall upon the Lamanites, that they did frighten them. And for this cause did the Lamanites deliver themselves up as prisoners of war."
It's a story that reminds us that even in the darkest of times when all hope seems lost, faith and courage can prevail.
And it highlights the profound influence that mothers have in shaping the lives of their children. Those young warriors were not just fighting for their people, they were fighting for the values that had been instilled in them by their mothers.
It's a story that stays with you. A story of faith, courage, and the bonds of family. It leaves us with this sense of hope and a reminder that even the seemingly impossible can be achieved through faith and determination.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us for this discussion on the story of Helaman and his 2,000 young warriors. We hope you found it as inspiring as we did. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more conversations like this one.